Hey guys, today I'm gonna react to 9 unsolved bizarre mysteries. So, curious.
Hi, it's Katrina. From five missing children to a strange global
Hmm,
epidemic, here are nine of the most bizarre mysteries that still haven't been solved.
okay.
Number 9. The Sodder Children. On what seemed like a normal Christmas Eve in 1945 in Fayetteville, West Virginia, couple George and Jenny Sodder and their 9 kids went to bed, eager for Christmas morning. A fire broke out around 1 o'clock a.m., and
Whoa,
George,
that's
Jenny, and
crazy.
4 of the kids escaped. George tried saving the other 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, by breaking a window, but he couldn't see inside the smoky house. They vanished seemingly into thin air and were never seen or heard from again.
Uh,
Due to communication
that's
issues, the fire
heartbreaking.
department did not reach the scene until 8 in the morning, by which point the house was completely destroyed. But traces of the 5 missing kids' remains were never found, and they were presumed dead, based on the theory that the blaze completely cremated their remains. Still, with no signs of remains whatsoever, George and Jenny began to wonder if their children had somehow escaped the fire, and if so, what had happened to them. The fire itself, which was attributed to faulty wiring, also raised questions, since the wiring had recently been installed and inspected, and was in perfect working order as far as the couple knew.
Hmm,
In the months leading up to the fire, numerous strange people had appeared at and near the Sodders' home, including an angry insurance salesman who said that the house was going to go up in smoke, and a stranger looking for work who pointed at the boxes containing the wiring and said that they were going to catch fire someday. After the tragic incident, Jenny
what?
began
That's
her own
crazy.
investigation and learned that it was highly unlikely that the fire had burned her children's bodies to the point of leaving no bones behind. Even more curiously, people claimed to see the missing children after the fire, including a waitress who served them breakfast before they rode off in a car with Florida license plates. Witnesses said that the kids were accompanied by adult men who would not let the children interact with anyone while out in public. The Sodders spent years trying to convince the authorities to reopen the case, believing that their children had been kidnapped, but they adamantly refused, leaving the couple
What?
on their own to investigate leads. Time and time again, their search turned up fruitless. George and Jenny Sodder died without ever learning what happened to
Uh,
their 5 vanished children, but with the
that's
certainty
sad,
that they did
man.
not die in the Christmas Eve house fire. Number 8. Cryptic Cop Killer. On September 7th, 1959, Officer Douglas Eugene Cantrell of the Davis, California Police Department was killed in the line of duty near a railroad track in a residential part of town. A young couple discovered his slain body in his patrol car, which was still running with its lights on. Officer Cantrell was sitting in the front seat with his legs hanging out the open door, a single bullet through the heart, and his .38 caliber pistol on the ground. After joining the department just a month earlier, the 23-year-old patrolman became the first and only Davis Police Department officer ever killed on the job, a distinction he holds to this day.
Wow.
Both suicide and accidental causes were ruled out, but investigators failed to procure any witness accounts of the incident or any suspicious activity in the area. Nobody was ever charged in Officer Cantrell's death, despite several suspects being questioned and given polygraphs. One individual who spoke with detectives changed the story of his whereabouts on the night of the murder, making him look even more suspicious, but there was
Right?
no evidence linking him to the crime. Meanwhile, a Louisiana prisoner named Emmett Spencer attempted to implicate his girlfriend, Mary Catherine Hampton,
What?
in Officer Cantrell's murder.
That's
He
crazy.
was probably lying, as evidence showed that Hampton was in Florida when the killing occurred. The cold case was still open on its 53rd anniversary in 2012, when Rich Rifkin covered it for the Davis Enterprise and was denied access to the case file. Unfortunately, the murder happened so long ago that anyone with information about the culprit, including the killer themselves, will likely take their secrets to the grave, if they haven't already. Number
Wow.
7. Dyatlov Pass Incident. A group of 10 young but experienced cross-country skiers trekked into the Ural Mountains near Yekaterinburg, Russia for what was supposed to be a
Oh.
3-week trip to Mount Ortorton. What happened to them remains one of the greatest mysteries of
Hmm.
all time. They set up camp in a mountain pass,
Whoa,
and
that
the
was
leader of
beautiful.
the expedition said that he'd telegram his sports club when they returned. Weeks and weeks passed and no sign. so a search party was sent out to find them. They came across a very disturbing scene. What exactly had happened, no one knows, but the rescuers found the tent slashed from the inside, as
What?
if the travelers had tried escaping suddenly, with their seemingly abandoned dinner nearby.
That's
Outside the
crazy.
tent were a
They
series
just
of
left
footprints made
everything?
by 8 or 9 people who were either barefoot, in socks, or wearing one shoe. The footprints
What?
led to a nearby tree where they found the remains of 2 people, stripped of their clothes and wearing nothing but underwear. Another 3 were spotted who seemed to have died from the cold, but there were no other injuries. 2 months later, 4 more appeared in a ravine with significant injuries and signs of attack. Some had been mutilated or had parts missing. Some also had broken ribs, an oddly twisted neck, and a fractured skull. The only survivor was Yura Yudin, an economics scholar who experienced back pain early on in the trip and turned around in the nick of time. The official causes of death were declared to be hypothermia and frostbite. But what had really happened to the group? It was definitely not an animal attack or an avalanche that would take off their clothes and cause all of these bizarre injuries. People demanded answers regarding the suspicious deaths, but nobody was ever implicated, including the suspected military and the local Mansi tribe. In early
What?
2019, the Russian government reopened its investigation into the incident, announcing plans to fly experts to the site where the bodies were discovered for forensic tests, in an attempt to determine exactly what happened. Theories range from weapons testing carried out by the military to an encounter with an angry Yeti, or for whatever reason, the group turned against each other like some type of Hunger Games. It's very hard to say
Yeah.
for sure until perhaps some documents become declassified. What are your theories about this incident? What do you think happened to them? Let me know.
I mean, like, okay, so the tent was slashed from the inside. So probably, well, it's weird because, like, maybe they were like, maybe something happened with one of the campers and they, like, started losing their mind and everybody else freaked out and ran away. Because that would be, like, the only explanation for everybody just to run off like that. So unprepared. I mean, leaving everything and desperate to run away. But, I mean, unless they were scared of, like, some sort of animal, maybe. But if there was an animal, I mean, maybe, like, their food and stuff would have been eaten or something. I don't know. It's definitely strange. But it's weird how they were saying the military. Like, why would the military be over there? And if the military was there, they would have, like discarded the bodies. They wouldn't just leave them there for people to find. So that I don't really think it's the military, but I wonder. Well, it's like, it's pretty crazy to think about different possibilities of what happened. But like that first guy was pretty lucky that he didn't go with them because of back pain. But no, that's pretty crazy.
Comments below. Number 6. Mara Murray's disappearance. On February 9th, 2004, 21-year-old nursing student Mara Murray packed up her dorm room belongings, withdrew cash from an ATM, and hit the road. She emailed one of her professors explaining that there was a death in the family, although there wasn't, and that she would be gone for a week. Her 1996 Saturn was found crashed into a tree in Woodsville, New Hampshire. A police officer at the scene wrote that evidence at the scene indicated that the vehicle had been eastbound and had run off the roadway, struck some trees, spun around, and come to rest facing the wrong way in the eastbound lane. Although it was no mystery that Mara's car had crashed, she was nowhere to be found. It was cold outside and the ground was covered in snow. A local bus driver who witnessed the crash told police that the young lady behind the wheel came out and told him not to report it, that she already had. Not true. An empty wine box in the car and red stains indicated that alcohol played a role in the accident. Perhaps she panicked? The only other clues were a set of MapQuest directions to an apartment complex in Burlington, Vermont, along with a typed letter to her boyfriend about their relationship problems, which she left behind in her dorm room. No trace of Mara was found any further than 100 feet from the crash, leaving authorities with 3 primary theories. She got a ride, was abducted, or kept walking into the woods and somehow her scent was lost in the snow. Investigative journalist James Renner put forth the idea that Mara had someone pick her up and take her to Canada, where she started a new life. Renner believes that perhaps she was pregnant and ran off to escape her abusive boyfriend. Either way, it is very strange that she would just disappear without even telling her family. Mara's family is still searching for answers. Earlier this year, they launched a new website in her honor, maramurraymissing.org. Number 5. The Havana Embassy Mystery.
Yeah, I mean, that's like my first thought is like she's probably just trying to run away, and I mean if she was pregnant it would make sense to try to like run away from her boyfriend. And I mean, who knows, maybe the family, maybe she was worried or scared about them too, and she felt like it would be better just to like disappear and pretend like she, died or just perished. So, because I mean, if she's still alive and with like like the website and all that stuff, like if she really wanted to reach out, she could, but she probably doesn't want to. But because I mean that would be the whole reason why to vanish, because she didn't want to like be with them. Maybe that's what she was trying to do, but no, that's pretty crazy.
In late 2016, CIA agents posing as American diplomats in Havana, Cuba, experienced an array of bizarre symptoms, including loud, mechanical sounds akin to chirping crickets. The individuals were ultimately treated for hearing loss, nausea, headaches, and other concussion-like symptoms.
What?
FBI agents found
That's
no
crazy.
evidence of what happened. Meanwhile, theories of a long-range acoustic weapon prevailed. The so-called official conclusion was that those claiming to experience symptoms suffered from a condition called mass sociogenic illness, which is another term for mass hysteria. Cuban officials and the U.S. State Department squabbled back and forth about whether the bizarre condition was indeed a psychological condition or something else. One study posited that the patients exhibited symptoms of having suffered from military-induced or car accident-related effects.
What?
It's like a concussion without a concussion, wrote co-author Randall
just from the
Swanson.
sound?
Since there was
That's
never
crazy.
any proof of any type of sound weapon or anything like that, the incident was used as an excuse to scale back on former President Barack Obama's moves to lessen tensions and open up diplomatic relations between the U.S. and Cuba. But no agency has conclusively determined who or what was behind this strange incident, leaving the rest of the country and the world to wonder what caused at least 22 individuals to be diagnosed with the bizarre symptoms.
Wow.
What happened to the American diplomats in Cuba? Nobody knows. Number 4.
What?
Sleeping sickness
That's
epidemic.
crazy. They just
Starting in the
disappeared.
winter of 1916 to 1917, a strange neurological sickness called encephalitis lethargica began spreading across Europe and eventually elsewhere. It's estimated that over 1 million people were afflicted with the condition during this unexplainable period, which lasted into the 1930s. It's believed that the sleeping sickness started in Romania and spread throughout the continent, moving especially efficiently via traveling soldiers during World War I. In 1917,
Whoa,
after
what?
hitting Vienna, it became an epidemic, and it accompanied the Spanish flu in 1918. One theory holds that a rare strain of Streptococcus bacteria causes sleeping sickness by attacking the brain, but experts remain at a loss for an explanation for why people suffer from the disease and its strange symptoms, which include being essentially frozen in a state of lethargy, along with fever, headache, and double vision. Other side effects include abnormal eye movements, upper body weakness, muscular pain, tremors, hallucinations, and, in acute cases, patients sometimes even enter a coma.
What?
To add to the mystery, the
Oh, that's
illness
so
seemed to
crazy.
go away for a period of time, only to reappear in Europe decades later during the 1950s, in the US during the 60s, and about 10 years ago in China, when a young girl was hospitalized for several weeks. Dr. Oliver Sacks, who treated patients in the Bronx, described them as seemingly insubstantial as ghosts and as passive as zombies. During past
Wow.
outbreaks, victims were usually between 10 and 45 years old, and while 1/3 of them perished from the disease, many, if not most survivors, never returned to normal. Even more terrifyingly, there was also an apparent tendency for patients to come down with Parkinson's disease after suffering from sleeping sickness. The
What?
medical community's knowledge of the disease is perhaps limited by the small windows of time and
Man, and we're all like freaked out about like stuff that's going on today, like that's so crazy. Like 1/3 perished, the other 2/3 like won't be normal again, and I'm like, oh man. But in the same time, I wonder. Well, I wonder if like because it was like the time period in World War I, maybe there was like testing with chemical warfare that they were trying to do, but maybe they were working on something and that they like lost control or something, or maybe like accidentally like spread it too much, and maybe that's what happened. But man, that's crazy.
Opportunities they had to study it. Will sleeping sickness reappear? Let's hope not. Number 3, Romans in Brazil.
Man, so did they? So it just disappeared, but they never actually found a cure for it. Oh man, like imagine that comes back like today. Like, oh, that would be scary.
1982, a marine archaeologist named Robert Marks discovered around 200 intact Roman jars, or amphorae, on the seafloor about 15 miles off the shore of Brazil's Guanabara Bay. The presence of amphorae, which were used as shipping containers, often indicates that a Roman shipwreck is nearby,
Whoa.
leading to the shocking idea that the ancient Romans may have reached the Americas hundreds of years before the earliest European explorers were known to arrive there. The Brazilian government was hesitant to investigate the matter, and Marx speculated that this could be because the country did not want to challenge the historical narrative due to its long-standing ties with Portugal. Because the artifacts in question appear to date back to the 2nd century BC, if proven authentic, they stand to upend the story that the Portuguese were the first Europeans in Brazil. But it's unlikely that answers will ever be found as long as the government maintains its current stance on the matter. A year after Marx found the jars, further exploration of the area was banned, supposedly to deter looters, and the policy remains in effect to this day. Number 2. The Pollock sisters.
That's crazy.
In 1957, sisters Joanna and Jacqueline Pollock tragically died when they were hit by a car in the small English town of Hexham. A year after the accident, their devastated parents went on to have twin girls, named Jillian and Jennifer. John, the twins' father, had predicted that Joanna and Jacqueline would be reborn through the new children, and at first,
That's
his
weird.
wife Florence was skeptical of this idea. From the beginning of their lives, however, the twins showed distinct signs of John's prediction being true. For example, there was a white line across Jennifer's forehead in the same exact spot where Jacqueline had a scar, and Jennifer also had the same birthmark as her deceased sister. As the girls grew, they resembled their older sisters more and more in both their looks and mannerisms. It's easy to chalk these similarities up to a case of grieving parents desperately looking for signs of the children they lost somehow still being there. But some of the twins' abilities cannot be explained rationally, including one incident where they visited the town where the deadly crash had occurred, and were able to identify landmarks that their older sisters had been familiar with, even though the family had moved away when they were babies. Jillian and Jennifer also identified and correctly named dolls and other toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline. Perhaps the most disturbing sign of reincarnation that the twins experienced were the nightmares of car crashes that plagued them, and their complete fear of idling cars. After the girls turned 5 years old, this and other occurrences that had made their parents believe that they were their older sisters reborn became less frequent. The twins went on to live normal lives, leaving the world to wonder if they were truly a case of reincarnation, or if lots of little coincidences added up to paint this picture for their mourning parents. Number 1. A vanished family.
I mean, the only thing about that one is like, I mean, they said John said they'll be reincarnated or reborn or whatever, and it's like, I mean, it's such like a hopeful thought for them, and I feel like he, I mean, maybe he was like, maybe they were saying other things or like, different dreams or whatever, and them being hopeful, them being the same like daughters or whatever, they just like, oh, see, connected, but it's like maybe it didn't, maybe it was like just random, and it just happened to be close enough where they thought like, oh, they're reincarnated, but Oh man, that one's pretty creepy.
When the swimming pool belonging to the Salomons, a Northridge, California family of four, overflowed and spilled into the neighbor's yard in 1982, nearby residents realized that the home's occupants had vanished. They alerted the police, who found
What?
blood spatter and a cutaway piece of carpet in the bedroom of 14-year-old daughter Michelle, indicating the teen had met foul play. But DNA analysis was not readily available like it is now, and with no obvious signs of what happened to the Salomons, the authorities classified their disappearance as a missing persons case. Documents and personal effects belonging to some of the family members subsequently turned up in strange places, including a freeway 15 miles from their home. Over the next decade, numerous theories turned up, including allegations that missing husband and father Sol Salomon was involved in the Israeli mafia or some other criminal activity that ended in fatal violence. But actual evidence pointing to what happened to the family remained scarce. The night before anyone realized the Salomons were missing, Sol supposedly attended a car auction and ate at a restaurant with a business partner, whose story was fraught with inconsistencies and red flags, including the fact that the diner they supposedly visited was actually closed that night. The business partner was arrested, but there wasn't enough evidence for a conviction, and he walked free, with his guilt remaining doubtful to this day. Investigators failed to procure solid enough evidence to nab any other suspects in the case, which remains unsolved to this day.
Wow.
Thanks for watching. Do you have any theories for these mysteries? Would you like to hear more? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you next time.